Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, on this very cold Sunday night, wherever you are in the country. This is Fast Break here, live for iSports Radio, your directory for always sports, and you're welcome to join us. On tonight's show, Locke, Jimmy Butler's back in the lineup.
I seen that.
And he's still going to be traded. We got to talk about that again. We got to talk about that. Plus, talk about my trip down to Tuscaloosa this past Tuesday. Watched Ole Miss and Alabama, which Bama lost in a horrible way to Ole Miss. D-Lock, anything you want to talk about here tonight?
Everything is going pretty well. Obviously, a lot of people are paying attention to NFL playoffs, but we also have college basketball is going on, NBA is going on. A lot of teams, Dan Carroll is back, so we're seeing that big difference in the Orlando Magic with them, even though they're playing the Denver Nuggets tonight. There's a lot that we can cover, man. Also, I definitely want to touch on Jimmy Butler coming back in. What does that mean? You know, how to make that, what does that change anything regarding the trade?
Yeah, we'll get into Jimmy Butler stuff probably on the first block of the show. Plus, USC women's went to Indiana to win a very close game. The final score don't determine it, but very close game by the USC women's over in Indiana. But we'll discuss that and much more here on Fast Break here, live for iSports Radio. Your direct feed that is always sports. And we'll catch you on the other side after these few short messages.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. iSports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey there, iEsports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, everybody? Thank you for tuning in with us tonight on another broadcast here for Fast Break, here for IE Sports Radio, your direct feed always sports. And we're going to have a loaded show here tonight. I know it's playoff weekend here, but the world basketball is picking up hot and strong, depending on where you live. It's very cold right now. Before we get started, I want to talk about our newest sponsor, Raw Nutrition Supplements. Go to getrawnutrition.com. Use the promo code IESR for 10% off. So that's go to getrawnutrition.com. Use the promo code IESR right there you see on the screen for 10% off for any order. You can buy one thing, come back 2 weeks later, don't play your money right. 10% off another time. So getrawnutrition.com to get all your supplement needs there. Do follow us on X/Twitter at FastBreakIESR. That's FastBreakIESR. As we live tweeting as the show goes forward. D-Locke, how you doing tonight, sir?
Pretty good, man. I mean, I'm looking at some of these results. Obviously, flipping with the playoff games, but looking at some of these games. My Magic are struggling right now against Denver, who's actually been playing pretty good since Russ has been put in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
Not too happy with that, but otherwise, I'm happy the fact that Ben Carroll's back, man. He's still getting some all-star votes, which is pretty decent. So hopefully they can bounce back from this loss that we definitely going to take tonight.
And, to get started tonight, we got to talk about one, Jimmy Butler.
Yes.
Jimmy is back in the lineup after serving his suspension. Thank goodness, because I got him in my fantasy basketball, and it's been killing me along the other injuries on my roster. But Jimmy's back in the lineup for the Miami Heat. But before talk about the basketball part, D-Lock, he and Pat Riley, they talked. They met face to face, and Jimmy relayed to him, "I still want to be traded." Trade deadline is about a couple weeks away, at least about 2.5 weeks away,
Mm-hmm.
early February. D-Lock, before we talk about the basketball part on the court, hearing that, do the Heat still try to make a move for Jimmy and get something done before the trade deadline or at the trade deadline, or they just kind of stuck with him for the rest of the year?
Knowing how Pat Riley is, I think Pat Riley does honor that, give him a chance to move him. I think the biggest thing is you respect Jimmy for what he's done in Miami. I know we've seen him bounce a few places, doing what he did in Chicago, the situation in Minnesota with Karl Anthony Towns and then what he did in Philly. So I think that now in Miami, he's done a lot. Maybe, as they say, all good things must come to an end at some point. But maybe it may be time for them to move on from Jimmy. I think with Pat Riley, how he's drafted and how he puts his teams together, I think he continues to still be a competitive team, in the East. I think Miami Heat will still be competitive if Jimmy is gone. But also knowing that, I think they look for the best trade, not only for themselves, but for Jimmy as well. Obviously he wants to go to a contender. Looking at their record, they're 21-20. Now, I don't think it's the fact that he wants to go to a contender. I believe it's a hell of a lot more than that. Because clearly we know what Pat Riley can do with the pieces that he has. Excuse me, but I think that now, with that being said, now you have to decide what you want to do with that team and what trade pieces that you get in return. So to trade Jimmy, I think is very much possible. I don't see them really bringing Jimmy back for the full season unless Pat Riley can have that talk again with Jimmy and things change. Maybe they get their relationship back on good terms, which we've seen with a few people. Remember, we thought Kobe was going to get traded at one point from the Lakers, and that didn't happen. That's just to point out, one key piece, obviously, the LeBron situation. So there's different ways that this can go. But I think the fact that Jimmy is, as they say nowadays, standing on business, I don't think he ends the season in a Heat uniform. I think he may end up getting traded. The question is where.
Yeah, I remember the Kobe story, and the story always was like Dr. Buss had him come out to his house and he sat Kobe's ass down and he told Kobe, hey man, I ain't trying to trade you, man. I know you're frustrated, but I got these offers from Detroit and Chicago. I can't remember which one he was going to lean towards. That's the thing I can't remember. It's like Detroit, at the time, he had, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun, that crew. And I think Chauncey is going to be involved in that trade. I think the core of those guys. I think Chicago, you got the more younger guys in that trade, but y'all get my point. But it didn't happen, so the hardest not to talk about it. But for Jimmy, this is different because Jimmy was never viewed as like one of the top guys in the league. I mean, he's very good. Don't get me wrong, but he never. I think a lot of people, especially in the national media, kind of put him as like the main guy in a sense, like we put like a Kobe or so forth, LeBron. So it's great that he's back. To see where he gets moved, I don't know. Last week, we're talking about like the draft scenarios that Bleacher Report put out, and pretty nice ideas. One for your Orlando Magic, got some good pieces in that mock trade. There's still kind of the story that he still won't go to Phoenix for whatever reason. It's just kind of like, what can they give up and whatnot? They made a move early last week, sending Josh Okogie to Charlotte for Mark Richards to get a big man there. So I don't know what they're gonna do with Jimmy. Who's gonna take him? It's a lot of money. This new CBA is full in effect, so we got to remember that.
Right.
So unless some teams will try to bite the bullet now in the tax aprons and stuff like that, and go all in, like we mentioned before, could the OKC? I know that they got a lot of salaries to make up. Could the OKC try to like swing for the fences there? Offer a couple of first round picks, throw some salary in there, make a move there. I don't know. I doubt it. Cleveland has already come out and said they ain't not really gonna make no moves in the trade deadline. They like where they are.
Yeah.
So you can't blame them there. Even though I think, seeing someone like Mark Richards get traded like that for like a second round pick and a role player, Cleveland can use some depth in that front court just in case. Because beyond Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, you really don't got no big men like that.
Nope.
So it's kind of good to have somebody with size behind them. I know you got Dean Wade. I know you got Tristan Thompson, but those dudes are about like 6'7", 6'8" combined. I mean, they're both 6'7", 6'8". So yeah, they can play post, but you kind of need some size there. But I don't know, D-Lock, where you gonna go? That mock trade we looked at last week sounds pretty good, but that's ifs and buts right there. And I don't know where he can move to. Cam Johnson's also rumored in trade talks as well, and he's coming like a lower salary and cheaper price compared to Jimmy. So there's other guys in the market they've been discussed about that can be moved, but at lower salaries and stuff like that. So I don't know what Miami's going to do.
I mean,
it's
they have a tough
play.
decision that got to be made. A very tough decision, I think. Having that conversation with Pat Riley, getting him back out there after suspension also gives me, I guess, a step in the possibility of staying in Miami, but I think it's going to take a hell of a lot more to get him to stay there. If anything, I think that the way you get him to stay is that they made a trade piece to bring somebody to Miami. I think that's what they're going to have to do to make that, hey, we are stepping in that direction, not only building around you or building with you, but we're bringing in another asset for you. Because obviously, okay, you got Tyler Hero, you got and Bam, but those three, the inconsistency of Duncan Robinson, how does that, fare out? Highsmith, somewhat inconsistent. Hawkes is pretty decent, but Terry Rozier is not doing too much of a big thing over there. He's there, but he's playing that somewhat of a smaller role player. So for me, I think to get him to stay, you might have to move a big piece over there. But again, it's going to be interesting to see what happened and what trade that they take. Because I think if you move on from Jimmy Butler, you still sit into that rebuild. You're accepting the rebuilding mode that you're getting into. But also, if you move Jimmy, now you got to consider what you're going to do with Bam. Because now if you do get in that rebuilding mode, Tyler Hero is going to be your guy. And what are you going to put around him? And we know very well how the Miami Heat, move. They're going to have a big dog on their team. They're going to have a star, whether it's Jimmy or, before Jimmy, they had somebody now, and post Jimmy, they're going to have somebody. So, maybe that's what they're looking for or aiming towards. But again, it's a tough situation. We'll see later on down the road before trade deadline where this team is ranked. How close are they? Where are they ranked in the East? How close they are to that one of them playoff spots, and does that change Jimmy Butler's mind a little bit? But clearly, it's not about where he lives, because obviously Miami is probably a very nice place to stay at, as we know. So for him to actually still be on, he wants to trade. It's not about where he lives. He's literally dead serious about wanting to be on a competitive team, regardless of where they are. And this is nothing new from what we hear of Jimmy Butler. That's why he's been moved a few times already, because he wants to be a part of a winning culture. So again, it's going to be kind of interesting in how this play out. But if anybody can get him to stay, it is Pat Riley.
I'm reading a story right now from Mark Stein, well, not from Mark Stein, but from Sports Illustrated by Will Raggards. He quote Mark Stein, what Mark Stein is reporting that the Timberwolves will help facilitate the Jimmy Butler trade, but not interested in bringing him back. We make that clear. They will help facilitate the trade, but not willing to take him back. Which obvious reasons, as we've seen his time in Minnesota. So they will help facilitate the trade. If they do that, who else will be involved? Will Julius Randle be involved? Which that fit, we talked about that fit in Minnesota has not been the best for Julius Randle and his playing style with that crew. It's not really worked out. Dante DiVincenzo, different story. Worked out pretty good for them. But Julius Randle, not so much. Stein mentions Butler's tenure in Minnesota was a volatile one, which we all knew that. It also states that it sounds like Tim Connelly and other executives see Butler's trade demand as a possible avenue to improve their own teams, but not by adding Butler to their roster. So Minnesota maybe trying to get better in themselves.
Not with Jimmy, yeah.
Not with Jimmy, though. So that's another team that's kind of is thrown out there right now, kind of looking to improve their roster by the trade deadline to kind of do something here. They'll help. We'll get rid of Julius Randle, but we're not taking Jimmy Butler back. So you got Minnesota and Miami. Soft talks right now. Who a third team will be? That's hard to say right now. Very hard to say.
I probably, this is a team to probably watch out for. I think we talked about is New Orleans Pelicans. What they do with their roster. We talk about Zion, DeJounte Murray, the guys that they have. This hasn't panned out as well as we thought. We talked about the last show as far as Zion kind of being all over the place. Life is, he's doing everything except play consistent basketball. But while that's happening, Trey Murphy is looking excellent right now. You know what I mean? So is that a piece that they keep, or is that a piece that they use to move on from? In my mind, we talked about. I've came to the point to where I say the Pelicans need to move on from Zion. At this point, it's time to move on from this guy. I know it's hard to deal with. I know they drafted him. They thought he was going to be the next great. It hasn't worked. So at this point, possibly move on. You got DeJounte Murray, who's been moved multiple places already since being in San Antonio. CJ McCollum there. So watch out for that team as a team that might, make a couple calls and make a couple trades, because right now it's kind of up and down to what they're doing. Are they rebuilding, or are they trying to contend with the pieces that they have? They got some younger pieces that could do something, but now do you have to rebuild again? So watch out for the Pelicans. And I think, if I'm Pat Riley, and I know that Miami, Jimmy Butler literally wants to go, that's not changing. I'm not opposed to having a call or a meeting with the Pelicans about who they have and what I can get in a 3-team trade. I don't think Jimmy wants to go. He wouldn't want to go to New Orleans, but you can add him in a 3-team trade and possibly get some moves out of that. Because right now, we're looking at some key players that definitely need to be moved and need a new change of scenery.
Interesting you brought up New Orleans. Brandon Ingram still don't have a new deal. He's been, I don't say lobbying for a new deal, but he's been looking for a new deal for the past couple of years with the Pelicans, and they have really kind of left them on red. Is there a possibility that if you do three-team trade between those two threes, do you think B.I. would get moved in that scenario? Go send Jimmy to the Pelicans, draft picks involved. B.I. goes to Minnesota, and Julius goes down to Miami.
That's definitely a huge possibility. To be honest, man, I think Jimmy gets moved multiple times before this trade deadline. So I think that he gets moved somewhere, possibly to Pelicans, but he's not going to be. I don't think Jimmy would accept being in New Orleans. So I think that is a possible move. And then another team comes in and say, hey, we'll take Jimmy because we are competitive. We want to be competitive. Excuse me. And boom. Now, another team that he can possibly look at, they're playing pretty decent right now. They may not want a Jimmy, but the Houston Rockets. I mean, they have a few pieces. They have a lot of good pieces there. I got a lot of good young pieces. But if you add in a veteran that has a little bit of dog in them with the Fred VanVleet, maybe that does put them more competitive in the West. They have a hell of a roster, right? But I think this team is very young. Now Fred VanVleet has the being an NBA champ, but to me, could it be a possible move? I mean, I like the roster, but again, we have to put some of these teams in there that are trying to take that leap, right? The teams that are in the middle that can be competitive, they can add a piece and be a contender. So for me, BI is also a possibility to move. And if I'm Pat Riley, I'm damn sure looking at BI as well. Like, listen, I can grab this guy and have him, plugged in with Tyler Hero and Bam, which would be a hell of a three-player team. So for me, Pelicans, they got a lot. And like I said, I think Zion is another big possibility as well. A big person that they could be moved. So the trade deadline is going to be very interesting. And also, as we all wonder, what do the Lakers do? Do they make a move at trade deadline? Do they keep the core that they have?
I'm looking at the Houston Rockets cap space right now. Right now, they're kind of in that first apron right now. Not too heavy. The only big salaries they have is Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks. And then if you want to throw in Steven Adams, but it's like at $12 million. So that's kind of like a bargain right now. So you throw out Houston, which is a good spot. Now, who do you give up from Houston? If you look at salary rise, I'm looking at like Jeff Green's at $8 million. So you're throwing him for salary. If you're Miami, I'll say I'll bring in Steven Adams for height and bench depth right there.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta have a young guy, so either give me Tari Eason, or Cam Whitmore. So, and then I don't know. Do you throw in Dylan Brooks in there?
Yeah, you could. Again,
I got my phone right in front of me, but if you're looking at the salary type, so 34 between Steven Adams and Dylan Brooks, $8 million right there for Jeff Green, $3 million, Tari Eason.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get close to that matching his salary there, but if you're Miami, that's not a bad haul if you're still trying to stay in contention. You get a starting center in Steven Adams. Dylan Brooks, could plug in that starting spot where Jimmy left or keep on the bench. Eason and Whitmore, you get a nice young forward for the future.
Mm-hmm.
You probably more take Cam Whitmore because he has more upside. And then Jeff Green, he's the salary filler for the most part, and you can waive him. Let me go to the chat real quick before we go to our first break. Shout out to the chat real quick. Terry Rodriguez, how you doing tonight, sir? Marcus, Los Great. Marcus brought this point up. How much is not having Haslem in the walking room playing a part in this Jimmy's development? Big thing, small thing, or no deal at all?
That's a good question. I think it's playing a huge part. because we know what Udonis is. Wasn't it last year when I think Udonis had to separate them?
Was it last year?
If I'm not mistaken, I think it was.
Ooh.
Udonis had to separate somebody last year. Jimmy Butler, and I believe it was Pat Riley.
Let me
But
look.
I think that that the energy that Udonis brings is huge when it's not there. But also, you bring in guys like a Jimmy Butler to carry that torch, to pass the torch on to the next. Now we know how long Udonis has been there through all the championships, but at some point he can't be there forever. So that doesn't give an excuse why things are not going as planned. Once he leave, they got to move on. And even if they had an issue, I mean, what they're gonna say? Okay, well, call Udonis and he's gonna figure it out. No, they gotta, get it together. And for me, like this Heat team doesn't look like the usual Heat team that we always see. We always see the Heat team kind of get off to a rocky start in the beginning, but they are not looking the same as what we're used to. And it's a complete different team. It looks like a complete different team than the team we've seen that go to the NBA Finals against the Lakers. Team that I believe beat the Hawks in the play-in tournament that made that long move. I think they went to So to me, I just being competitive is great, but at this point, Jimmy feels as if he's done a lot there in Miami, and now he wants that championship. So now they've been to the NBA Finals and made those moves, but now this team has to be. They want to take that leap of faith. They want to make that next leap to win that championship, and that's what Jimmy is looking forward to. So for me, I think that he does play a huge part. Even hell, I mean, come on, man, they went to the NBA Finals against the Nuggets, so he's been to the finals with the Heat multiple times. I mean, so at this point, Jimmy's like, well, hell, we've done incredibly a lot already. So if we haven't got it done now, I need to go somewhere where I can get me a championship. And you can't blame him for it. So again, at this point, we got to see where he gets moved. But I do think Udonis not being there is probably playing a slight part.
I'm reading now. Udonis is actually the vice president of basketball development for the Miami Heat. So he's still, we kind of figured he was still staying in the organization. How long he's been there? So he's still involved with the team. I don't think he's not there with the team on a daily basis like that. I mean, he is, but he's not in the locker room like Marcus is asking about here. But he's still there, involved with the team very heavily. So, but I've seen some quotes. He's staying out of it, of the Pat Riley, Jimmy Butler thing. So, there goes his saying, like, I'm staying out of it, not my place. So he's already saying that. If he's already saying that, then it's probably thinking like it's between those two guys. So, it is what it is in that situation. Like you mentioned, he came back against Denver the other day at 18 points and 33 minutes in the starting lineup, only 3 rebounds, but they lose big to the Nuggets. And like you alluded to, Russ has been in the starting lineup for Denver, and it's done wonders.
Yes.
For Westbrook's reputation, the way he's been playing.
Correct.
And, we talked on the show in years past couple of years about the Westbrook and Lakers fit. It's like at times, especially when LeBron and AD don't play, Russ was cool. Like his old self, getting triple doubles on damn near triple doubles and stuff like that. But when LeBron and them back in the lineup and stuff like that, it's kind of like this. How can y'all not figure this out?
Right.
But he goes here and he, plays with Jokic, plays with Jamal Murray, and it's like things just feel like fit like a glove. And I think it's like great for him, great for his confidence, and kind of going back to the naysayers. Like, I still got this. I still got this. But they win big against Miami, 113. Jamal Murray also in that game had 30 points and 8 assists in that matchup as well. And then to kind of stay with Miami here to go our next break. Today's final, they played the San Antonio Spurs. They beat the Spurs 128-107. Duncan Robinson, the aforementioned Duncan Robinson, 21 points in the starting lineup for him, 5 for 7 for 3-point land. But the bench really came through for the Heat today. Khalil Ware, 25 points for him, 8 rebounds. Terry Rozier, 20 points off the bench, 5 assists for him. Jokic, Delver Jokic, 14 points for him. Jamie Jacquez, 12 points for him. So the bench came out in a huge way for the Heat when Jimmy and Bam combined for 14 points altogether for the starting lineup for the Heat there. So Lawson's return, one back against the Spurs in that matchup. Victor Wembanyama had 21 points, 10 rebounds for him. Vassell, 23 points for him. And the bench for the Spurs didn't really do too much except for like Keldon Johnson, who had 8 points. So far, D-Lock 1-1, back in the starting lineup for the Miami Heat. The Heat are 8th place in the East right now. So they still got playoff aspirations. They got to turn things up. They got to, if they're going to Memphis Jimmy, they got Memphis. They're going to trade them. But they got to make a decision here soon if they want to try to get back to that top of the East real quick. But I'll let you have your last word on the Jimmy situation.
I mean, again, I think, like I said, we know what Jimmy is and what his expectations are. He's a winner. He wants to be a winner.
Yep.
And at this point, I mean, now just thinking about, okay, bet I've been to 2 NBA finals with this team. I've had the chance to get a championship, and we failed them both. So at this point, you've done so much. Miami Heat in the city of Miami will appreciate everything Jimmy has done. We all see the famous picture of him leaning over, dead tired after having a hell of a game in the NBA Finals, and it's still being used now. Being worn out, he's given his all. Who can blame the guy? I mean, like I said, at this point, he wants to win. I think Pat Riley has done well with him. They've done well together. But again, when you do deal with teams like the Lakers playing how they were playing then, and the Denver Nuggets, who were just clicking on all cylinders that year, is very tough. And also, I think another reason why Jimmy possibly saying this is he sees what the Boston Celtics are doing.
Yeah,
he sees where they're going. He sees the expectation and how tough it's going to be to beat the Boston Celtics with the team that he has. So, I mean, I don't blame him, but I think, like I said, it's going to be very interesting where he lands.
And plus, he's in his mid-30s as well.
Yeah, peak. He's in his peak, starting in his prime a little bit now. So, and it's going to start to slowly drop off, and he wants to get a chance to get a title before that happens.
So, I think that's another thing to keep an eye on there. And trade deadline is February 6th. So we'll see if they move him, what's the chatter, all that good stuff here in the next coming days here. But we'll be right back after these couple messages here. On the other side of things, we talk about the big rematch between Cleveland, OKC, how that match up the second time around. Plus, NBA talk throughout the week as well. But this is Fast Break Live for iSports Radio. You're the for Always Sports, and we'll catch you on the other side.
What's up, everybody? This is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of thunderous spikes? Then I have the show for you. Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
And we're back here live for Fast Break for IE Sports Radio. You're the for all sports. Thanks for joining in with us tonight. Thank you to listen to those quick commercial breaks. Very quick, kind of like the TikTok break. It happened overnight, and we're back live with it. And people were just tripping out for nothing. But anyways, D-Locke, I haven't got that out the way. Talk about the week that was in the NBA. We had a big-time matchup out west in OKC. You had the Cleveland Cavaliers and the OKC Thunder. I'm trying to pull up that box score right now. On Thursday, with the Thunder getting a lick back, 134 to 114 over the Cavs. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 40 points, 8 assists in that matchup. Lou Dort, 22 points. Off the bench, Joe had 12 points. Carlson had 11. Caruso had 10 in 13 minutes. On the other side of things for Cleveland, Darius Garland had 20 points. Donovan Mitchell, this calendar new year, he ain't been shooting his best. 8 points for him, 3 for 15 from the field for him. 12 points for Ty Jerome off the bench as well. So, and Jared Allen had 13 points, but nobody double-digit rebounds for the Cavs at all in that matchup. D-Lock, OKC got that lit back from Cleveland after that matchup a couple weeks ago. The series tied 1-1. After seeing both of these games or watching the highlights of it, who do you think is better between both squads?
Oof, that's a good question. I mean, I'm gonna take a look. I think right now, I like both teams. I think that when you see it 1-1, it shows you that this is a competitive series between the two. It'll be very interesting. We see both of these teams in the NBA Finals a few months from now. But for me, Donovan Mitchell hasn't been playing his greatest recently. I mean, he's definitely been struggling. I mean, I had to tell one of my friends a couple of days ago to just leave him alone picking him in fantasy league, because he really ain't clicking like that. And even if he is, they got so many guards. You know, they got multiple different guards that can come in there and play well for them. But right now, I probably would say more so of Cleveland. I mean, right now, when you have the guy that you have, yes, the Thunder got the lit back. Both got the same record, but I still like what Cleveland shows. I mean, I think right now, when you got your guys like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen playing their best ball, it makes it a hell of a lot easier for those guards. Now, to your point, I think one thing that does play a part is Cleveland does not have anybody in that backcourt after Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. Now, the question is, how do they fix that by this trade deadline that can give them that push? Tristan Thompson is not the Tristan Thompson we've seen 5-6 years ago, right? So for me, I think that this means that, the Cavs, looking trade deadline or possibly, around by the trade deadline, they need to make a decision on if they possibly need to add, a big to that backcourt with them. I like I said, the Thunder are one of those teams that we talked about is still young, but can play, great. And the Chet Holmgren is not back yet. So for me, when he does, this team is going to be a hell of a lot better. But with the guard play that the Cavs have, I take the Cavs because, I'm looking at the matchup between, both all positions. And the Cavs have more depth at their guard position, right? You got Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Karis LeVert. These guys, like I said, we talked about Craig Porter can come out there and eat sometimes if he needs to. So for me, we seen Jerome come in there, and we seen Ty Jerome come out there and have a game if needed as well. So I definitely like the Cavs. Now, with that being said, I think we may see the Thunder have a deeper run in the playoffs than the Cavs. Very tough to say, but we're looking at, they're going to match up. Cavs are going to match up against either the Knicks or Boston at some point. And I think that's going to be a tough series to where the Thunder, I mean, they're one of the better teams in the West. I can see them going a hell of a lot farther. So for me, that this matchup is going good between both teams, between the Cavs and the Thunder. But obviously with the Thunder having that number one seed, I mean, I'm looking at it. Okay, the Rockets are pretty decent. I think you're probably going to look at a big run with the Nuggets. But outside of that, I mean, obviously I like the Mavs, but the comparison of the Cavs facing either Boston or New York, possibly Milwaukee, that's gonna cause some big issues, I think. So for me, definitely think the Cavs are the better team, but I definitely think the Thunder may have a deeper run in the playoffs right at the moment.
I'm looking at the standings right now. OKC is number one in the West at 34-7. You got Houston right behind them, Memphis behind Houston at 3, Denver at the 4th spot, and then later on tonight, you got the Clippers and Lakers playing out in LA. They kind of like tied for that 5th spot. And then after that, you got Dallas and Minnesota right there in the top 8. And you got Sacramento in that 9th spot as well. So, who's better? It's like hard to say. It's also hard to say because nobody been fully healthy between the two matchups as well. Isaiah Hartenstein that first matchup, and now he's out again. For the Thunder, so you don't get that matchup. You don't get that chance to see the size down low between him and Holmgren to go against Mobley and Jared Allen. That would be like cool to see, like that matchup down low right there between those big men as well. But if I had to choose right now between the Thunder and the Cavs, I think I'm leaning more toward OKC. Only reason why, SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
MVP
candidate. I think he's been more consistent this year than the other two guards you mentioned, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. And listen, they've been playing great this year. They should make all NBA teams. Should be all stars as well. But say Gilgeous-Alexander's consistent ability is why this team is still there in the top. Mitchell, we talking about Mitchell, like his shooting so far this month has not been great. Hopefully he'll bounce back here soon, but it's not been great at the foreseeable moment. But I think OKC, they kind of really adapted well with small ball. Like everybody trying to talk about everybody going small ball on this stuff. A lot of these teams really can't do it. If we're going to be real about that. Like I'm looking in this camera. A lot of these teams trying to do small ball, but really can't do it like that. Let's be real about that. I say this as a Laker fan. Sometimes they can go small on LeBron, but it don't work like that. But OKC, they got the horses to do it. They got the players to do it. They got the coach to do it as well. And you got this team. Another thing a lot of people can keep on missing about the OKC team. This team is really very connected. You see the post-game interviews. Everybody interviews at the same time. They go out. If somebody getting their jersey retired, I'm at high school. They're all there in support. That is the connected team. They play together. Most of these guys came in and drafted in together as well. So you see all those things here. They play as a unit, and you can't break that mold for right now. But you can't break that mold.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Cavs, Kenny Atkinson has done a great job. I ain't taking that away from maybe Coach of the Year, maybe. But just right now, SGA is prime his career, D-Locke. And once Hartenstein and Hogan get over the injuries, I think they probably the better squad. In my humble opinion. Because I think, SGA is going to take you there. And I think you got other guys that can take up the slack in a sense, in my humble opinion. But I'll let you have the last one on that.
I mean, I think, I agree with the fact that obviously SGA is who he is. I mean, he's changed this whole team. We always talk about, I know the Clippers are shaking their head, especially in the situation that they're in now, right? I mean, okay, you got James Harden, but James Harden now and the SGA that what you have right now as an MVP candidate, you would love to have him on your team. But I think him making the impact with Jalen Williams, multiple guys, Dort over there, they got the defenders, of course. It's just for me, like I said, the comparison of having him, and then we're looking at Darius Garland, who can light it up. Now he's inconsistent sometimes. Darius Garland does have them inconsistent times.
Yeah.
That plays a huge part. But if you can get him, to play well, you catch him and Donovan Mitchell on fire together, it's going to cause issues for a lot of teams. And even when those guys are shaky, you're bringing in Karis LeVert plays a huge part. So OKC, again, they're number one in the West for a reason. I believe it was the last year, the year before, they were number one as well.
Yeah.
So they are that. They're clearly showing that they're one of the better teams. Now the question is, how far do they get with this in the playoffs? Can they make that push? Can they actually make it to the NBA Finals? Because we're seeing what Denver's doing. We're giving them praise and how they're looking. But I think when you have, the Joker on your team, he's going to cause a hell of a lot of issues for anybody.
Especially down low.
Especially, yes, of course. So, he does that. And now we bring in a Russ, not the actual triple dub Russ, but the better playing, consistent Russ with the Jamal Murray. What does that do for them? And obviously we can't leave out the Lakers, right? So again, and we always know how deep the West is. The West has always been like this. For years and years and years, it's been tough to get around there. So for me, This is. I definitely like. Okay, and it was a tough question. I mean, like I said, 34-7. Having what 6-game lead on number 1 seed or number 2 seed, which is insane. But again, we would have the Nuggets would show up during the playoffs. We know that the Dallas Mavericks would show up during the playoffs. The Warriors, if they find a way to get, in, they're going to show up for the playoffs. The jury's still out on the Phoenix Suns. You got those teams, and then you move over to the East. Okay, you got the Celtics, the Knicks, the Bucks. But outside of that, the Magic are looking pretty decent, but they haven't been consistent in the playoffs for me to say this is a contender yet. So, again, with these two teams, can we see this matchup in the NBA Finals? Is that possible? They have to go through a few teams, and as we, a lot of sports fans are experiencing now. The playoffs are not given, right? You talked to a lot of NFL fans yesterday before the Detroit and Washington game. They probably will tell you that they knew that Detroit was going to win and Detroit was going to drop them by 30 or 40 and they're going to play the Eagles, right? But it didn't happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's the reason why they play the game of sport. We love we love sports because it's so unpredictable in so many ways. You have these high expectations of what you think is going to happen, and it changes. It's so unpredictable nowadays that a lot of people say it's rigged. And I was just talking to my friend about one of my guys about it today. Sports are so unpredictable that some people may think it's rigged because it's so unpredictable, because of different things. Oh, hell, ain't no way this can happen. Somebody got to have a reason for this. Well, it's unpredictable like that. So, again, we see 35-6 from the Cavs, 34-7 for the Thunder. Top teams on both conferences. But do they make it to the NBA Finals? That's what we find out later on down the road. And we both can say, hey, we know this is clearly the best teams in the NBA. Clearly. I mean, we're talking about a six-game lead in the West and a 6-game lead in the East for the Cavs and the Thunder. But we know what Boston, reigning champs, can bring to the table. We know Milwaukee, if they're clicking. And that's another team that I thought about possibly could trade for Jimmy Butler. Different conversation for a different day. But again, who knows? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It is very good to see a team other than the Boston Celtics at the top of the East, or the Denver Nuggets or the Lakers at the top of the West. We see these younger teams actually getting it done. And that's definitely making the NBA very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's good for the league that you have these younger teams, atop right now like this. And, Cleveland being on top like this without LeBron, I think that's a very positive sign.
Oh, yes.
To the league as well. Now, right now, the OKC Thunder, they beating down the Brooklyn Nets, who's just kind of taking a real backslide here for the past couple months. And I know injuries played a part of that, but SGA right now against the Brooklyn Nets, 27 points, 10 assists. Only 2 turnovers against the Nets. Isaiah Joe, 24 points for him. 8 for 10 for three-point land. So he shot the ball very well. 12 points for Wiggins. 12 points for Dieng off the bench as well. Brooklyn. Cam Johnson, 15 points for him. D'Angelo Russell, 9 points. It's just kind of like they're kind of like the walking wounded right now.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about the Brooklyn Nets. Cam Johnson, guys been talking trade talks. It could be in like a OKC uniform here, potentially maybe in a couple weeks. So just keep an eye on that as well. Other scores real quick. The aforementioned Milwaukee Bucks playing the 76ers. 76ers going real small in that lineup today as well. I was looking at early today. I was like, damn, y'all really going small today. Maxey has 35 points. Oubre has 17 to lead the way for Philly. On the other side of things, Milwaukee, Giannis has 29 points, 14 rebounds. Damian Lillard has 25 points. Everybody's favorite role player, Taurean Prince, has 11.
Oh my God.
Chris Middleton off the bench, 13 points, 8 assists. Gary Trent, 3 points for him. Let me ask you this before we go to our last break. Milwaukee made the decision a while back that they won't put Middleton through the bench. You know, the issues do flare up every once in a while. We always be kind of big fans of Middleton here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it was a smart move for them to do that, to have him off the bench and then keep Taurean Prince on the starting lineup?
I mean, I think that works during the season, but I think when they get into these meaningful playoff series, I don't think that works. You're gonna play against a New York Knicks team with Tibbs is gonna play his starting five probably damn near the whole game. The Magic is probably gonna be a decent matchup, but you're gonna need scoring to match up against them as well. If they match up against Boston, you're gonna need Middleton to start that game up. Him coming off the bench is not gonna help anything. Same thing with Cleveland that we're talking about, because I think him having this injury issue, I don't think that's going to last in a 7-game series. And I don't think it lasts throughout the whole NBA playoffs. So, it may work for some time now, but I think that they're going to have to make an adjustment to where they can work him back in the starting lineup to get through that injury. Because in the NBA playoffs, you know how it is. In the NBA playoffs, they start to shorten that lineup, right? You're not going to you're going to shorten your rotations to probably maybe 8 guys. You're not going to put 12 guys. You're not going to be rotating 10 to 12 guys in these games. And these games are not going to be blowouts either. So these games are going to come more likely come down to the wire throughout the series. So that means that Chris Middleton minutes are going to go up, which means that injury that we're talking about, that flares, is going to be more exposed the more minutes he plays. So, and that's why I said earlier on the site, maybe a different conversation for a different day. Does Milwaukee consider looking at a trade for Jimmy Butler? Could he fit there? Because Chris Middleton isn't the Chris Middleton that won the NBA Finals against the Phoenix Suns. That's over with. So it reminds me of a player. I'm drawing a blank right now, that played extremely well, and a team decided to move on from him a little too late. I think we talked about it. I'm just drawing a blank right now. I can't think of it exactly who it is right now. If you said this, if it may come back to me at the end of the show, but the fact is right now, and it may be Chris Middleton, but he's just not that player. At this point, his trade value has dropped. So you can't trade him. So at this point, they're trying to move. Now, obviously, you can do that when you have a Dame and a Giannis, right? You got your guys there where you're going to get your points. But how long does this last when you're playing the Cleveland Cavs, when you're playing Orlando Magic, when you're playing the Knicks, these teams that are going to put together a very good series, and you're going to need Middleton for more of his minutes. Taurean Prince ain't scoring like that.
No.
With him starting, they're still relying on Dame and Giannis to get the buckets. Gary Trent really ain't playing. He's not averaging 10, 11 points a game like that. He's playing pretty decent, but there are games where he goes missing on the Cardinals.
Yes.
You don't see him. So, again, if they decide to keep Chris Middleton as their role player or their sixth man, I think that they need to make a trade for not necessarily a star, but somebody that can make a bigger impact than a combined Taurean Prince and Gary Trent, if they want to have him as that sixth man. Because I don't see Giannis and Dame start in the starting 5 beating Boston Celtics in a series. I just don't see that. I don't see that beating the Cavs team. So
no,
it just, those teams are deep. They have depth, so they're gonna be ready for those rotations. Now, my Magic right now with so many injuries, okay, you match up against the Magic, unbiased, you might be able to steal a few games because of the Magic bench is horrible right now. Everybody's hurt. But outside of that, you do match up against the New York Knicks, who's going to play a bulk of their guys a lot of minutes. Boston Celtics, who they literally can pull Jason Tatum, and they're still going to put up a shit ton of points a quarter. So the Cavs, who we just talked about, that got numerous amount of guards and a great rotation. So for me, they could roll with that, but if they continue to move with Chris Middleton at that 6-man position, I expect them to make a trade for somebody.
Yeah. Before we talk about last break, Middleton. I think Middleton going to the bench. I mean, ain't gonna be the worst thing, and plus, his injury situation still keeps him very limited. So having him off the bench, having some good scoring there, 15, 20 minutes a night, ain't the worst thing. I think the only thing with Milwaukee I kind of concerned about, I think Taurean Prince is a fine player, good role player, but like you mentioned, he ain't scoring like that. And Gary Trent, we talked about this in the summer when he signed that cheap deal with Milwaukee. But damn, that's a pretty good steal right there for Milwaukee. And I thought, like other players, we thought we're going to, use this at 1-year deal and try and translate to a bigger deal in the summer. And so far, Gary Trent's kind of wet in the bed on that department. So it's like y'all kind of right the ship, but now you kind of right the ship.
Mm-hmm.
You still got some lingering issue and still got some issues to ask about the starting lineup. Could they make a move for Jimmy? Throw Chris Middleton in there and whoever else, and maybe trying to make that one last push, and maybe trying to keep Giannis there as well. Who knows? Two tough guys like Giannis and Jimmy, then Bobby Portis as well. Pretty tough group to go in to lead in the playoffs. But, for Middleton, I think it's a good role for him. As long as he stays healthy, don't overexert himself, I think he'd be just fine in that department. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our last break. On the other side of things, we'll talk about my trip I took down to Tuscaloosa this last Tuesday to watch Alabama and Ole Miss, and talk about other scores around the world of college basketball. But this is Fast Break here, live on iSports Radio. You're the Eat for all in sports, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Hey, Cleveland and Columbus sports fans. This is Jen B, host of the Show of the Land on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in live to the Show of the Land on Tuesdays, where we will cover the Cleveland Browns, Cavs, Guardians, and Monsters. We will also talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, Crew, Fury, and of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll also cover other colleges in the area like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, Youngstown State, among others. So like I said, if you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in Tuesdays to the Show of the Land with Jen B on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, Are you in the market for Florida sports or just keeping up with the latest in the Panhandle? Palm Tree Sports is a dedicated audio hub to all things sports in the Sunshine State. We cover current events, big news, heavily favored opinions all across the NFL, NBA, MLB, and so much more. So come check us out every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a down south education on Florida sports and athletics. It's hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, and is powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we're back here for the home stretch of the show. This is Fast Break here, live for IE Sports Radio, your direct for all is sports. And it seems like the Baltimore Ravens are on the ropes right now, watching that game here. So we'll see if Buffalo pulls through. But anyways, D-Locke, I took a trip down to Tuscaloosa this last Tuesday. Got these tickets for the Ole Miss Alabama game for a Christmas present. And I was like, okay, Ole Miss, Chris Beard, Ole Miss squad that's is going to play tough and whatnot. Alabama been kind of whipping ass and just playing great ball for the most part. Man, when the game tipped and things got rolling within the first 2 minutes, Grant Nelson went out. They pulled him out the game. 2 minutes in, no foul, nothing like that. Just took him out the game. And the way that kind of set the tone, D-Locke, I was like, it's going to be a tough game. And it was a tough game. And credit to Ole Miss. Let me type this out real quick. Credit to Ole Miss and Chris Beard and crew. They played tough. From the jump to all the way to the end. And so much so, D-Locke, that they forced Alabama to play their game. And you had the big man for Alabama trying to post up and stuff like that. And they normally don't do that. I was like, why y'all? I was thinking, like, sometime in the second half, like, damn, why y'all posting up for? Like, stretch these guys, stretch the field court out and stuff like that. Do what y'all got to do. And they created a whole bunch of turnovers. Ole Miss did. So much so, let me pull that stat up quick, because I know if you play like a style like that, like Alabama does, you're going to have some turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
But 21 turnovers that Alabama had.
Oh.
And a good majority of them came in the first half. 21 turnovers. 5 for 20 for three-point land. For Alabama. So, they took them out of the game. Their post players for Ole Miss. Pull up the name right here. Malik Dia had career game. 23 points, 19 rebounds. The lead way for Ole Miss. Dre Davis. No, excuse me, wrong player. Excuse me. Jamie Brakenfield. 13 points for him, 7 for the free throw line, D-Locke, who kind of like really sealed the game late in the game when they're fouling, stuff like that. So Ole Miss is a team that I'm pretty sure they'll make the tournament. But Ole Miss is a team, D-Locke, when it comes like tournament time, stuff like that, a team you don't want to face in that first weekend. Because they'll grind out, create turnovers, stuff like that, and play that, I'll say bully ball, but play that tough ball, that grind out style. So I give credit to Ole Miss. The environment was great, Coleman Coliseum. It's great to be down there again and all that good stuff. But, when a team like that is playing physical and stuff like that, it take the crowd out of it. You know, I had his lady like 2 rows behind me, kept calling the Ole Miss player thugs. I was about to close to say something, but then like this Ole Miss fan say something like, "Hey man, hey lady, our players ain't no thugs." I can't do the summer twang like he did, but you get my point. But you can see the energy of Ole Miss as well. Like the players are standing up. You had like this ball-headed manager just waving this out the whole game. Ole Miss, you see the energy and stuff like that. And from the Alabama side, man, you didn't see that too much. You saw like a rallying point to get the guys into it, like showing that support from the sideline. Like Ole Miss, they were there from the jump, from cheering, from like being they good and stuff like that. Even bad calls, they were there. They were there from the beginning to the end. They were in it, and you know, and I think that's what they had to do. Chris Beard probably had that message like, "Hey, we come in, we got to take these dudes out their game, especially in Coleman. If we do that, I think we can win this game. If we don't defend well, and they're gonna shoot the lights out of us. They're gonna put like 90+ points on us." But they held them to 64 points. I know Alabama went to Lexington this past Saturday against Kentucky, put 100 on them. But here, if you can just play tough with them, don't overdo it, but play tough with them, have a strong inside game, you can beat them.
Right.
You can beat them. And I think I would say you got the blueprint, but you can beat them if you do those those little things. Not one team in the country is strong. I think we established that.
Yeah.
But you know, Alabama can score the best in the country. Ole Miss probably one of the better defensive teams in the country. But everybody got the weakness. And for Alabama, I'm saying this as an Alabama fan, like we thought we addressed the big man spot getting Clifford from Rutgers, and it really hasn't materialized like a lot of fans had hoped. So, you know, that's my thoughts on, you know, the Alabama game, going down to Tuscaloosa and just kind of watching things in person compared to TV.
Yeah.
You see things differently.
And you're part of that atmosphere too. You're part of that atmosphere, which probably was huge. Than just seeing, you know, from a TV, you see how that atmosphere affects a lot, which had to be super cool. I remember you sent me them seats. I was like, yeah, them some pretty dope seats. So just to be a part of it, you get to actually see that live instead of seeing it from a distance.
I mean, you know, sold out crowd, you know, seeing Kalen DeBoer on the other side of things, you know, right next to Greg Byrne and stuff like that. So you had the football coach there. You know, it's just like you had a lot of vibes there and momentum. And like we talked about, I think last week about the SEC, how tough it is. Momentum with the SEC, like especially in this month. Like, can you build momentum? Can you stay ahead of a lot of folks in conference play? Like Arkansas right now. They 0 for 5 in conference play right now. You got John Calipari there. You got all that talent that he brought from Kentucky and where else to Fayetteville. All that money, that Walmart money, that I forgot the other donor's name. That money as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't think
Tyson.
Yep, Tyson. Yep, that's right.
Yep.
And you don't think they don't like the 0-5 start right now in conference play? Texas, they're 1-4. You don't think they like that start right now? And look at the Arkansas losses right now. Lost to Tennessee, lost to Ole Miss, lost to Florida, who had a 1-point loss to Mizzou. LSU got beat down by Missouri this past Saturday. Now it's upcoming Wednesday. You play in Georgia, and then you get play against well, we discussed this last week, but playing against an Oklahoma team that's kind of been so far in SEC play. You looking down the barrel. 0-7 coming at the end of January.
Yeah.
And this is like Arkansas team and maybe a John Calipari that we're talking about after that Oakland loss and stuff like that in the NCAA tournament. That that's a nice catch. But anyways, that possibly washed.
Yeah.
And for the past couple of years, we kind of talked about on this show that Cal, like, do the Kentucky faithful, do they have a lot of patience for Cal going out early in term and stuff like that? And now we kind of like, they probably looking like, yeah, we got rid of him at the right time. Look what that Arkansas looking like right now. So the SEC is gonna be tough. Missouri's 4-1 conference play.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, they were undefeated in conference play. They lost to our arch rival Mississippi State. Tennessee, they lost to Vanderbilt Saturday. And Vanderbilt treats that like the damn Super Bowl, the Final Four, and NBA Finals combined when they play Tennessee in anything. Baseball, volleyball, football, whatever. And you lose to Vanderbilt like that. So I'll let you get in here. The SEC is gonna be tough. And it's hard to predict in January who's gonna come out top in this slugfest, but the SEC is gonna be tough.
I mean,
from here on out.
We talked about it before, and I know a lot of sports fans know about SEC being tough in football.
Yep.
Right. We always talk about how tough it is. You just brought in Oklahoma, who, sorry to bring it up, but did play Alabama and had hurt them with that one. You got Texas, who is going to be good. They came in and did what they did, but now we know that it's not just football. For those other sports fans, this is not just a football conference. This is a conference that literally is good from top to bottom, literally everywhere.
Yep.
And when you have that, me being in the college, working at a college, understanding the difference in how conferences and teams move, you clearly see what the SEC expects, not only from their football team, but from their basketball team, from their track team, from their high school team, not high school, for their volleyball team, for their swim team. Everything that they have there, every sport is going to be very good, and we're seeing it. We're talking about how tough it's going to be on the basketball. So I'm literally, I just had my first track meet this past weekend, and not only for University of Pittsburgh, we had our first track meet, but multiple teams, had their first track meet all over the country. And I'm looking at results, and all I'm seeing at top 10 in the world everywhere is SEC, and that's what they bring towards the table everywhere. So I said to say that, the SEC by itself is a league, right? Now, what makes it even more dangerous is something called the transfer portal. You got a lot of people that come in and look at the fact that, hey, you know what? I want to get in the transfer portal and join one of these SEC teams, right? And they do that, and they make the SEC a hell of a lot stronger. Now, with that being said, we also see the players that are the blue chip top 5 recruits, top 4 star, 5-star, 4-stars that go to the SEC teams, and if it doesn't get done in a year, they're out. They go somewhere else and they replace them. So literally, the SEC is a big deal. So for me, this is no surprise. It's just now for those that are more inclined into college basketball, they're seeing it a hell of a lot more. Texas and Oklahoma joining. Everybody talking about, that's going to be a hell of a conference for football. They're joining, bringing Texas and bringing Oklahoma. It doesn't change on basketball as well. It's going to be tough at basketball as well too. So we're seeing that, and we're going to see these shocking wins, these shocking losses. But this conference is, the big conference, and this is the conference that makes the most money as well. So you can have a team in this conference that's at the bottom, but they'll dominate any other conference. So that's how it goes. And it makes it very interesting. And this is the reason why the ESPN, ABC, NBC Sports, they love covering, try to get the SEC games. They're trying to do deals with the SEC network because they understand that each game is a battle. Each game you see between a Florida and Tennessee or Ole Miss and Bama, we can possibly see that same matchup in the SEC tournament and then see it in the NCAA tournament in March. So those are the things that can swing it. Now, obviously, the ACC has a few teams that they have, but there's a difference when you see a team from top to bottom really good. And I've talked about this multiple times. I think what NCAA football has done is actually add that 12-team playoffs. You're starting to see the teams that's in the middle of the conference make the playoffs. And it's the same thing with college basketball. You might see the team that's in the middle of the conference that has a shitty record, but this team probably can blow out half of the other teams around the nation. So when you see that, it plays a huge part of how things go. So for me, this is nothing new. And now, you can go and win the SEC tournament. Florida go win the SEC tournament basketball, but then LSU, then Bama, then Ole Miss can go and make it the Final Four in the tournament. And you're like, wow. So that's what makes it very interesting, but also now recruiting-wise, that makes it interesting as well.
Them having a tough conference, it's tough. Look at the ACC standings right now. I mean, that's enough tough conference as well, in my humble eyes. I mean, a lot of people want to say the Big Ten, and you can say that. You can say them, but Indiana is 5-3. In conference play, and there's a video out about not this past game they won against Ohio State, but they won against Illinois at home. They're screaming about firing Mike Woodson. Like loud chants. I forgot what that arena is called, Freedom Hall or something like that. They're talking about like firing Mike Woodson. And they're sitting here 5-3 in the conference, 14-5 altogether. And they're talking about firing Mike Woodson. So, yeah, they're 5-3, but it's like Wisconsin's there, Michigan's there, Purdue there, potential Sweet 16 team there. And Michigan State, yeah, you got Oregon and Illinois, but after that, Maryland's been so-and-so, Iowa, so-and-so, UCLA, Mick Cronin, enough said there. Rutgers, I wish Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey kind of went elsewhere, to be honest with you. To kind of, they'll be top 3 pick in the draft somewhere, but also get some success in the NCAA tournament as well. And then you just go down, D-Lock. Nebraska, Penn State, Northwestern, Ohio State, Washington, Minnesota. And then you just kind of look at the SEC, it's like, the only team that really compete with that is the conference you work for, the ACC.
Yep.
Duke's 8-0. Clemson 7-1. So kind of build on that success of their Elite 8 run. Louisville with the new coach there and the transfers they brought in, they're kind of right back things, after the Kenny Payne era. 7-1 in conference play. Wake Forest 6-1. Kind of riding the ship there with some of the guys they brought back. And then you got SMU new to the conference 5-2, Carolina 5-2. So, to say, who is the best, which conference is the best, it's hard to say. I'll just list out those teams and their records and stuff like that. Pitt is 3-4, Stanford 4-3. We talked last week about Florida State 4-3 in conference play as well. And then you get going down the list: Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Cal, NC State, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Boston College, Virginia, and Miami, who's kind of really just sticking up the joint.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of looking at everything, kind of figure out the landscape. It's going to be tough. And if you get lost in the shuffle very quickly, as we've seen in Miami, as we kind of seen in Arkansas, you get lost in the shuffle quickly, they might turn it down on you just like that. And like you mentioned about the transfer portal, you can turn things around. Alabama lost a whole bunch of players, brought a whole bunch of new guys in, and the ship's still going. Other teams, they can try to do that, but can they maintain that? That's the thing. I'll let you have the last word.
But again, I think, those matchups, SEC matchups are going to always be huge. It's going to play a huge part. Like I said, ACC obviously know what the ACC have with Duke, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, and a few other teams. But the SEC is as good from top to bottom. And obviously they're beating each other up, but it also makes them, prepare for future matches that they have with those other teams. And like I said, I think one thing I've noticed is the transfer portal is huge, but you can also have that second string SEC player or second string player out of Bama go transfer to another team and be the star of the team. You know what I mean? He's that guy. He's doing everything for this team. And that's because the SEC is so star-studded from top to bottom. You can take the person that comes in rotation with them and make him your guy. And that's what some of these other conferences are doing when they go to the transfer portal, right? I mean, sometimes that's what they look for. Now, we talk about it, it. Prime example is Alvin Kamara, right? Alvin Kamara was at Alabama with a hell of a lot of running backs. He wasn't the guy at the time, so he had to go somewhere else. Now, granted, he went to another SEC school, but that's just a prime example of teams that are so loaded that when they get a chance to a player go somewhere else, they're gonna be the star of the team, and it definitely showed that for NBA or college basketball, right? Because you're not just a running back; you playing guard. Hell, they can put you all over the place. You can get the bulk of the minutes, the bulk of the shots. So, yes, the SEC is tough, very tough, but also now with the transfer portal, you do got some of them players that think that obviously we know how college basketball is. You're one and done. You can come in and think you're going to leave, but if you're not getting those minutes, you're probably going to go somewhere where you can, leave and get that time, that shine, and it may work out best for you. But that's the battle in the SEC, and I think NBA teams draft that way. Obviously, we see what Brandon Miller has done so far in the NBA.
Being injured.
Yes, recently, just been that whole team. But we see what SEC produces on all levels, NFL and NBA, and it continues to happen. So, and that's because of how they're produced. So, again, I was a former athlete that started out in the SEC, and knowing what that gauntlet was like, and transferred to the ACC, and it was like, what is this? This is what I really got to go. So, it felt a hell of a lot different. So, but that's what makes college, especially the SEC, makes it very interesting. Obviously, we see in college football playoffs, we don't see any SEC teams in there, so that makes it, for those that argue the other side about the SEC, SEC is still tough, and it's always going to be that way.
Yeah, so we'll see how things shake out for come next week, how the records go and stuff like that. We'll start seeing more angry fan bases come next week, how things shake out in conference play. You always got the North Carolinas of the world. Like, if things don't go right, if they don't win the game, they don't win Hubert Davis's ass. Stuff like that. Villanova, with Kyle Neptune, it was kind of shaky at the beginning of the year. He kind of got things going. He probably saying he ain't gonna treat me like Kenny Payne did and like y'all did at Louisville. But now he kind of like riding something in Villanova, got things going, getting his feet together in a sense. And now, it seemed like the older guard kind of having issues going on conference play, all that good stuff as well. So So it's going to be interesting come next week when we talk about the standings in NCAA Locke. It's like, who's going to stay up top? Who's going to flutter a little bit? There's going to kind of surprise us going forward, in this coming week. But this has been our show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in with us tonight. I did want to mention before we get out of here, the USC women's, I did watch that game. They win 73-66. Tough game that Indiana brought from beginning to end. And credit to USC to kind of finish strong. Juju had 22 points. But I felt like that team should have blown them out because USC was just missing a lot of shots, D-Lock. A lot of threes, a lot of open looks delays on the three-point land. And I felt like they could have done a better job shooting the ball better. But credit to Indiana, they played tough. But when you got a superstar on the other side, like Juju, your team should be carried out to the top on that point. But this is my show tonight. D-Lock, where can people find you on social media?
You guys can find me at Black-813. Kind of doing a little bit more tweet about Orlando Magic and what they're doing. They're actually looking pretty good so far. I like what Apollo's doing. We can go from there. They know they can find the show's page.
Find the show's page there at Fast Break IESR. That's Fast Break IESR. Do follow Ice Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook. TikTok is back, but for how long? You know what I'm saying? So TikTok is back. Everybody seems happy. But follow YouTube as well, because just in case TikTok go away, we're on YouTube as well. You go to the website iSportsRadio.com for all your latest shows, news, and feeds as well. With Buffalo winning, our new Buffalo show. I know that our new host will be talking about that. Plus, you got the KC show. On the other side of things, Philly going to NFC Championship. Washington as well with our boy Mike. So a lot of talk there as well. Do follow me on Twitter. /X at Spawn4288, Spawn4288 on Twitter. Do follow the Crooks Process, my namesake right there on Instagram, Facebook. You see the CP logo there. I haven't done a podcast episode in a while. I'll look to get one done here soon, but we'll see. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, next week, we're inch closer to the trade deadline. More conference play talk. And wherever else happened in the world of basketball. But this has been our show. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.